How much does Zach LaVine's ankle injury now potentially hurt his trade market even further? Are the Chicago Bulls still focused on trading Zach LaVine before they potentially move DeMar DeRozan? We're going to talk about both those topics, plus how Coby White's ascension really does highlight further how this front office has still yet to really hit a home run on the draft. We're going to talk about all that, plus preview the game today against the Memphis Grizzlies, all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Sarah Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. So most of you guys probably saw it yesterday. I dropped an emergency video. Zach LaVine has now hurt his ankle. He's going to be out 1 to 2 weeks, which put him, if he's out that full 2 weeks, only coming back a week before the trade deadline. The Chicago Bulls currently sit right now five games outside of a guaranteed playoff run. We sit at the 9th seed right now, with the trade deadline being February 8th. This injury to Zach LaVine has potentially set things back even more, right? When you look at Zach LaVine on the season, he's averaging 19.5 points per game on 45% shooting and 34%, basically 35% from three-point range. And when you look at last season's averages, 24.8 points per game, 48% shooting, 37% from three-point range. So right now, when you look at that, this is the latest in a string of injuries for Zach LaVine of why teams may be kind of hesitant on Zach LaVine. When you look at it, right? 2 left knee surgeries of Zach LaVine had, only 1 playoff appearance, an injured thumb on top of all that as well. He has 3 years, $138 million left on his contract. So a lot of people are now naturally questioning, what does this really mean for Zach LaVine's trade value out on the open market, and how much has it impacted and hurt it? Now, I will say this, right? Hopefully this injury for Zach LaVine isn't anything major. There's some doubts around the severity of that and, how long he's going to be out. We'll see the 1 to 2 weeks. But it definitely happens at the wrong time for the Chicago Bulls. As we've heard now that the Bulls are still focused on moving Zach LaVine, it still is what they're focused on. They want to reshape this roster. This definitely hurts those chances of it. And it could now secure the fact that Zach LaVine may finish the season with the Chicago Bulls. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? When you look at the way that Zach LaVine has tried to fit in since he's come back, I know people still kind of blame Zach for everything, that maybe if Zach LaVine comes back, plays well in the playoffs, whether it's the play-in or whatever else, comes back and stays relatively injury-free for the rest of the season, it could help his trade value in the offseason. Now, I've gone on to say I don't think his trade value extends anymore in the offseason, other than not having to pay a partial season on his deal because, the rest of the season they wouldn't have to pay. But it's still doubts around that. And I think when it comes down to it with Zach, it's just going to come down to a team missing out on maybe their first target and Zach LaVine being the consolation prize. But as we've been saying, you cannot just get crap value back for Zach LaVine. That is not the place that this front office is at, and they have to make sure that they get value out of this deal. Now, with that said, kind of along the lines of this, over on Chris Hayes, he was actually asked on Bleacher Report about Zach LaVine's trade value. He had this to say.
I haven't heard much regarding LaVine.
Yeah.
And I think what happens to LaVine will dictate what happens with DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is another player who is on an expiring deal. He will be a free agent in the offseason, and he's been playing really well. I've told that there's really no extension talks ongoing between DeMar and the Bulls. The last time they talked about extension, they were far off, and so they kind of shelved those conversations. So, it's going to be, everybody wants to know what Chicago, like Toronto was that team before. It was like, okay, they're going to have a garage sale. You're still waiting to see if that's going to be the case with Chicago. So I don't have any concrete evidence right now that they're going in any direction right now. But what I will say is LaVine definitely is the first priority for the Chicago Bulls to try to see what can be done. And that will kind of dictate where they go from there.
So it seems like the Bulls are still more focused on moving Zach LaVine before DeMar DeRozan. And the reason why I played this is that you hear from a lot of Bulls fans of saying, let's move DeMar first. Let's not trade Zach LaVine. DeMar should be the first one to go. And it seems like the Bulls are in a place where they are more content with maybe even letting DeMar DeRozan's deal just expire out and letting it play out in free agency or whatever way it goes. Now, to hear this in this video clip as well to hear that the Bulls and DeMar have basically stopped contract negotiations. To me, that says that the chances of a contract extension for DeMar DeRozan happening during the season are all but done. So do not expect DeMar DeRozan to reach a contract extension with the Chicago Bulls. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to trade him. I do think that they should at least explore that trade value for DeMar if they're not going to bring him back. But we'll see what ends up coming of that. And let me know what you guys think of that clip. Now, again, Chris Hayes is not like he's a day-and-day Bulls beat reporter who may have the best beat on the team or anything like that. But I don't doubt that maybe he has heard some rumblings. Now, how valid those rumblings are, that's a story for another day. But this kind of aligns with things that we've heard from Joe Cowley, things that we've heard from Casey Johnson, guys that actually are there day in and day out following the Chicago Bulls. So aren't always 100%, especially I'm not a Joe Cowley fan, as you guys know. Casey Johnson is definitely somebody that I do trust that at least what he's reporting is something that he's heard. So if I do doubt anything Casey Johnson reports, it's more so on the source than it is on Casey Johnson. I definitely trust that Casey Johnson is hearing what he's reporting out. So, the trade market for Zach, the trade market for the Chicago Bulls is going to overall be really interesting to watch how this materializes or lack thereof as we go forward into the trade deadline. But let me know what you guys think down below. Now, I want to talk about something from a different angle, right? Is that we've all known, we've seen the rise that Coby White has had for the Chicago Bulls. And it's been great to see him step up in the way that he's played defensively, offensively, decision-making, playmaking, getting to the rim, scoring right, all those things. We've seen Coby White really step up his game in a major way here, especially since December started, right? Coby White's really worked out and been really good for the Chicago Bulls. But I think what this highlights further is the fact that AK and Eversley have still yet to hit truly on one of their draft selections. Now, it doesn't mean that Patrick Williams, Dalen Terry, Ayo Dosunmu, right, Adama Sanogo, I see Julian Phillips already, that these guys can't be looked as a hit later on. But when you really factor it in, when you look at it, we knew that coming into this season, we needed one of our young guys to step up majorly. And the young guy that happened to step up was one of the guys actually drafted by John Paxson and Gar Forman, right? So when you look at it right now, there are big question marks on everywhere. And that's not to say that Gar Pax would hit on every draft pick. When you look at it, they hit on during their tenure together. We know that before Gar Forman came on, of course, they hit on Kurt Heinrich, Ben Gordon, Luau Deng, Derrick Rose, guys like that. But even outside of that, Taj Gibson, a hit. Bobby Portis, a hit. Maybe not for this team, but a hit. Lauri Markkanen, look at the season that he's having with the Utah Jazz. They're now a team above 500 as well. But then they've had misses as well. James Johnson, Marquise Teague, Tony Snell, trading for Doug McDermott, Denzel Valentine, Wendell Carter, Chandler Hutchinson. But we're still now relying our hopes still on a draft pick done by that regime. And while it's again, the drafts are told over time, just like Coby White didn't look like who he is now 3-4 years into his career. He's really starting to put together now. It can happen for players that AKME have drafted. It just hasn't happened yet. But I do think that seeing the rise that Coby White has had puts a bigger highlight on why this front office needs to get their draft picks right going forward. We need to start seeing a foundation laid by this front office on young players that can really ascend and play really good for the Chicago Bulls. That is a big part of front office finding sustainable talent, is being able to hit on draft picks. And so hopefully we see that now going forward for the Chicago Bulls, that we start seeing that a little bit more for them. I hope that we can. Like I said, we still got guys with promise on the roster. Dalen Terry still has some promise. Ayo Dosunmu still can grow some, right? Patrick Williams still, ton of potential ahead of Patrick Williams. Then you got Julian Phillips. You got Adama Sanogo. Arnalot Batim, who isn't a draft selection, but it is a player that they signed. And so let's hope that we start seeing that. We do own our own first-round pick in this upcoming draft, and I would really love to see that draft player, amongst others, really turn into a foundational piece for the Chicago Bulls. Doesn't mean that it has to be a superstar, but a foundational piece for the team as we look to reshape going forward. Let me know what you guys think after hearing that little bit of stat. I found that kind of interesting when that thought came to my mind, so I wanted to bring that here. But the Bulls play the Memphis Grizzlies today, and things kind of stay the same as what we've always talked about with the Bulls. How do you defend? Do you give that consistent effort on that side of the ball? Right? Do you defend, rebound? We need to take advantage of them on the boards as well and make sure that we hold our own. This is a team as well with the Memphis Grizzlies that have tons of injuries. Now, they still got a lot of talent still left on that team, so you don't want to overlook anything like that. But Derrick Rose out, right, in this game. Desmond Bane out in this game. Marcus Smart out. John Morant out. Brandon Clark out. Steven Adams out. The Bulls need to come in here and take care of business, and they need to understand the moment. You cannot play down to your competition tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't care what their record is. I don't care that they've only won 15 games. We ain't that far above them. The Bulls need to take care of business, execute, shoot the ball well, play as a team. Zach LaVine is not in this game, so those excuses for those that make it because of Zach LaVine disrupting the offense, we don't have that. Can Patrick Williams get back to being aggressive? He laid a nice groundwork in that first game back against the Raptors, but can he play even better now, right? That's what we need to see for this team, how they can step up to get this win tonight, and can we get a complete team win? Also looking at Billy Donovan, how do you use the roster? Now that you have Zach LaVine gone, again, do you get back to spreading the ball around more? We started seeing a little bit of too much isolation ball creep in there. While there's going to be times where isolation ball is needed, can the Chicago Bulls step up and avoid the heavy isolation and get back to playing as a team? And I'm also looking for Coby White. You're now the de facto number one yet again, right? And Coby White needs to step up, and I want to see opportunities for Coby down the stretch of the game to make decisions, not always necessarily to score, and let's see it. Let's see how the Bulls compete in this game. This is going to be a very important game for the Chicago Bulls and how they compete. Listen, this is a team that still has some talent on it. Do not get me wrong. Jaren Jackson Jr. is still an absolute dog. They got G.G. Jackson, who's been absolutely filling it up. But you got to take care of business tonight against the Memphis Grizzlies, and let's hope the Chicago Bulls do that. Let me know what you guys think, what your expectations are for this game down below. But let's go ahead and get into the voicemails. It is Saturday. That means this episode is mainly built around your voicemails. This one's from Big O.
What's going on, Brother Hayes? It's Big O, brother. How you doing, man? Great response to my last call in, as always, man. Love to be back and forth with you. This call, I want to call in and actually, because I know it's kind of like a topic right now, the Zach LaVine versus the market, particularly Siakam. I know I heard you and Hayes kind of, debating that as far as Siakam being a better player than Zach or vice versa. In my opinion, I think this was really what's going on. I think everything you said, actually, with the contract, not to say that he's not worth the contract, but it's playing a factor. The fact that Zach LaVine is not really seen around the league as a winning player, that's playing a factor. I don't think the injuries playing a big factor as much, but it could be. But this kind of like my view on it. I actually think that shooting guards are not really a thing in the league anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't mean that like to throw them all away, because you got some great shooting guards. You got Donovan Mitchell. You got some Devin Bookers of the world. You know what I mean? You got your Anthony Edwards. You know what I mean? But I think that a 6'8", 6'9" player, even if he's not a great defensive player, as we talk about Pascal Siakam, but the fact that he can get you 20 to 25 points a night, 7 to 8, 9, 10 rebounds, and just long enough to defend your LeBrons and Kevin Durant of the world, it makes those players are more valuable in today's league. So, like, let's just say, in my opinion, if we could have swapped Zach LaVine for Siakam and you put Siakam on the Bulls, I'm not telling you the Bulls would be this crazy, make this crazy leap in the Eastern Conference, but I believe that it could change the dynamic of the team makeup and where them points coming from. So if you got 20 to 25 points coming from that fourth spot, it makes a big difference when you have a Coby White giving you his 20 from the point, and then you got DeMar DeRozan doing what he does from the 2 and the 3. So I think it just matters as far as where the points coming from and the size and the makeup of the player. Those type of players are just like highly valuable in today's NBA. So that's just kind of my opinion on it, brother. My time running out. I'm trying to have to keep an eye on it. But I'll call in again, brother. Thank you.
Zach and Pascal, I like most of what you said in your comparisons there. Zach is not seen as a winning player, whether right or wrong or wherever step you view on it. And Pascal, though, isn't the top talent that is just going to get you in the playoffs with his presence alone. But with what he can bring with pairing with Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner and Ben Mathurin, what they can bring as a whole really is going to be amazing. But at the end of the day, when you look at what Zach brings to the team and teams possibly being in or out on Zach LaVine, it comes down to the own questions that he has as a player. But some of those same questions could exist for Pascal Siakam, and it comes down to Zach, the Chicago Bulls, to eliminate those questions. And unfortunately right now, with Zach being out, he's not going to have the opportunity to limit those questions. So I get it where the market is on Zach. I do understand it. I think some of it's a little bit overblown. You're going to see that in the market. I think the teams are trying to hope that they get that value down low enough to where they can get Zach without giving up too many major assets on their team. And that may end up being what ends up happening. But I think that this front office is really one that's playing this chips close to their vest. And we're going to see what it ends up bringing about it. Let's hope that it does, that the Bulls get a fair deal back for it. It's not going to be one-for-one talent. Anybody who's writing it up thinking that the Bulls are going to get equal talent, they're not, at least not for one player. But if the Bulls can get back 2-3 players that can really help add some depth to the team, maybe even some size, I think that definitely helps a big way as well. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Todd.
Yo, what's up, Hayes? It's Todd, man. Just calling you a little bit of a therapy session, man. I'm bummed after seeing that Siakam trade go down, and more so, man, just like thinking about our Bulls and why we just can't get right, bro. Why can't we ever get right? Meaning, like, even not even the Siakam trade. Looking at like G.G. Jackson, for instance, for the Grizzlies, 6'9", 215, 19-year-old rookie, scores 23 points on the Warriors, and our rookie can't even get in. Shit, our second year, man, can't even get in anymore. It seems like every move we make is always the wrong move, unless we get lucky with like Coby deciding to up his game on his own. And it seems like every move we make is always the wrong move. And why is that? It's like everything that Arturis has done has been the wrong move, from the Billy extension to Billy not playing our rookies, to keeping Zach too long, and now there's no market. What can we do to get this team right? And I know that selling the team isn't an option. So realistic option. What can we do to get this team right? Because I refuse to believe, as a fan who has been watching this team since the 80s, that we're cursed or something like that. But I just need to know from you, or your opinion, what really can we do today to get this team on the right track, man? All right, later.
Why can't the Bulls get right? And here's what I'll say. I get it, the G.G. Jackson of it all, but let's be clear. G.G. Jackson had 2 really good games, and outside of everything other than that has been trash. Now, G.G. Jackson was a player that I was high on. You can go back and look at my draft profiles for last year. If we had, for example, got G.G. instead of Julian Phillips, I would have absolutely loved it. But I think what it comes down to is also opportunity. G.G. would not have been given the opportunities that he got if it wasn't for the major injuries on that team. And so we can't necessarily say that that's going to be a hit quite yet. But we do see rookies over the course of the league really kind of giving minutes. Now, G.G. he had games of the 20 points to 23 points. And then he had a game where he played 10 minutes and only scored 1 point. And then before that, he was averaging like 3 minutes per game. So it's not like he's been this hit for sure right now. It is this kind of buzz thing that's going on right now around G.G. I do think that he has great talent. He could end up being a dog. But let's not overlook it yet, man. Let's not say that the Bulls haven't hit yet. We see what Julian Phillips ends up turning into, because I do think Julian has a really good ceiling ahead of him. But I agree with you. This front office has to hit on their draft picks. They just have to. And that's the way that you really extend your ceiling of your team, especially when you're one of the older teams in the league per average age. So let's see what the Bulls can do in that case. Great voicemail there from Todd. Let's get into this next one. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. I'm just wanted to comment about whether or not I'm surprised Lonzo Ball is being mentioned in trade rumors. And the answer is no. I mean, if the team would trade for him, they can use the creating exception on him and get $20 million off their books next year. And so I'm not surprised about that. There's only like probably a handful of teams that would make that move. And the team I'm looking at most likely is probably Dallas. And the players they probably give up for a guy who's not going to play on their roster is Maxi Kleber and Sean Holmes. Now, yes, they have size, but do they fit the Bulls, system? Not really. I don't know why Maxi Kleber isn't getting minutes. But prior to last year, he was one of the main guys I wanted on this Bulls team. He had a decent mid-range shot. He could play the 4 or 5, but he was better at the 4. And as for Rashawn Holmes, when he was with Sacramento, he wasn't bad either. He was a legit center. And would the Bulls have the space to get him? They probably have to trade Terry Taylor to go with Lonzo Ball to make the money even up a little bit more, which I'm not mad at. But do you think those 2 guys will get any type of minutes with this Bulls team as is? And if so, where do you think that puts the Bulls when it concerns guys like Phillips and Sanogo? I mean, right now. Billy Donovan isn't even playing them. There are a bunch of injuries that you need the size. So I just would like to hear your opinion on the matter. Thanks.
All right, so Lonzo Ball to to Dallas for Maxi Kleber. I mean, I guess it's cool. It's better than not getting anything from Zoe, but I don't know if that's the level of deal that the Bulls are looking for necessarily moving Lonzo's contract. Now, Reginald, I'm going to actually have a challenge to you, bro. Every time you call, it's about trades. Come on, man. Let's come off the trades a little bit, bro. Let's come off the trades a little bit. I know you watch the Bulls every single day. Let's get a little bit more going in there. But as far as the Pascal part of it, yeah, listen, the Pacers did their thing. The Pacers did their thing, and shout out to having an aggressive front office that just does not settle. I wish we were on the other side of that, man. But we'll see how the Pacers end up coming together as a team over the second half of the season, because I do think that could definitely hit. And if it does, yeah, we'll see with that. But the Lonzo trade part of it, man, it kind of is what it is when it comes down to that. And, we'll end up seeing what happens, man. Let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Jamoy.
Yo, Hayes, what's going on, man? This is Jamoy. I just called, but I forgot a player's name. But basically, I was calling to see what you thought about a trade scenario. So I want to make sure I put it all in context here. So again, it's a team that I guess, been in mentions with the Pistons, but I think we should maybe add a few extra players to it to kind of, make it, I guess, decent for both teams. But I would think that the Bulls should give up Zach LaVine, Javon Carter, and Terry Taylor for Jaden Ivey, Boban, and Joe Harris. So I just think with that trade, it does kind of help both sides where, we're getting actual talent back. And I think the Pistons are not going to give up any first-round picks. I mean, they have heavy protections on their first-round picks. So maybe you add a few second-round picks, 4 second-round picks, sort similar to the Bradley Beal trade, where we would actually get more talent back than, let's say, the Warriors by getting Chris Paul, and also the Wizards by getting Jordan Poole. So by us getting Boban and Ivy, that's good. And then we'll save money next year because Joe Harris will come off the books. But just let me know what you think about that trade scenario. And again, love the show.
All right. This trade, I don't think this is a bad trade, right? LaVine, Javon Carter, Terry Taylor for Ivy, Bojan, and Joe Harris. This is a deal that I think gets a lot. But here's the thing that I said, and I said this to Pat, the designer, when he brought up the Zach LaVine potentially going to Detroit. He doesn't move the needle for Detroit at all, not even remotely. So I don't know if I see them trying to make a move for Zach and getting that type of contract back. Now, they're not a free agent destination, so maybe they want to take advantage now. We know Jaden Ivey kind of fell out of that rotation at one point in time. I have some doubts around how him and Coby White would fit potentially in backcourt together, but maybe you're not starting them. Maybe you're bringing Jaden Ivey off the bench as a high-level bench player, which kind of Iowa's been. So, listen, if that's the best deal on the market, you take it. But I think that I hope that you can get a little bit better than that. But Jaden Ivey is a player that a lot of Bulls fans have talked about a while now for the Chicago Bulls. And maybe that is the route that the Bulls end up going. But, guys, let me know what you guys think down below. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one is from Leviant.
Yo, what's good, Hayes? This is Lavian. So I had this idea, right, with Lonzo Ball's contract and the free agency coming to a good deadline right now. So I was looking at the Spurs and what they're missing, and what they're missing is a playmaker. So my whole thing was, could the Spurs trade Doug McDermott and Cedi Osman for Lonzo Ball and take a risk on Lonzo Ball? Because I feel like if Lonzo is healthy, Lonzo and Victor Wembanyama would be a pretty nice of a duo. And for the Bulls, I feel like those are two guys that can come in and compete at a high level right now if we're going for like a playoff run right now. So just let me know what you think about that. All right, appreciate it.
Would the Spurs take Lonzo Ball? That is actually a really good question, and something that I never thought about, because you look at the Spurs, you look at Greg Popovich. Could they be a little bit more patient with Lonzo, just looking at the ceiling of what he could be? Maybe. I do think that it's a big risk for any team that would be willing to take on Lonzo Ball, because we don't necessarily know how he's going to return back to basketball, if he even does return back to basketball, right? And that's one of the things that you have a question in that. But the Spurs being an organization that, I think if the Spurs call you and they're willing to take Lonzo Ball's contract back for the deal that you kind of presented forth, you kind of got to take it, right? But then some part of me would also be worried, like, hey, if Pop is still interested in Lonzo, what does that tell us, right? So listen. I think that's I like the way that their thought process is behind it. You actually looking at it, what it could mean for both sides, because having Lonzo be able to do pick and rolls with Wemby, man, that's dangerous. But you just got to be sure that Lonzo is going to actually be able to come back and be close to Lonzo, because if he's not, got some questions there. But guys, thank you so much for leaving those voicemails. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See Red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.